Deep in the shadows of the American South and stretching upward toward the forests of New York, a silent invasion is unfolding. A relentless vine climbs over ancient oaks. It smothers native canopies under a heavy, suffocating blanket of glossy, heart-shaped leaves. To the USDA and state invasive species councils, this is a green monster, a Tier 1 threat to be eradicated with industrial poisons. But across the Pacific, this exact plant is the backbone of a multi-billion-dollar agricultural empire. It is a revered medicine prescribed for millennia to restore the gut and ignite the body's internal vitality. Here is the irony: this vine didn't arrive by accident. It was brought here in the 1800s as the intended savior of the Western world. We are currently spending millions of dollars to poison a crop that was originally imported to save us from mass starvation. A plant containing medicinal compounds found in almost no other vegetable on Earth. This isn't kudzu. This is the story of the cinnamon vine, Dioscorea polystacea, the Chinese yam. It is the vegetable that solved a biological crisis we've chosen to forget. And if we look closer at these weeds, we might find the very abundance we're searching for. If you value rediscovering the forgotten crops history left behind, join our journey by subscribing. Let's dig into the dirt of the past. To understand why this vine grows wild in Tennessee today, we must return to 1840. One of the darkest chapters in human history. The potato blight was decimating the primary calorie source of the West. Europe was starving. American farmers lived in a state of constant terror, watching the horizon, waiting for the blight to wipe out the New World's food supply. Then came William Robert Prince. A fourth-generation nurseryman from New York, Prince was a titan of American horticulture. In 1855, he sparked a national frenzy. He declared he had found the esculent of the future. This plant was immune to the blight. It could be stored in a cellar for years without rotting. Its nutritional profile superior to any tuber known to man. It wasn't just food. It was agricultural gold. Today, we see it as a parasite. But in the East, the protocol of the yam is vastly different. First, it is a powerhouse of qi, or vital energy, specifically targeting the spleen and lungs. Second, it contains unique mucilage, a thick, gooey substance that acts as a soothing balm for the digestive tract. Third, unlike the common potato, it can be eaten raw, providing a crisp water chestnut texture that carries a massive enzymatic load. We moved from praying for its arrival to poisoning its existence. We traded a miracle for a monoculture. The cinnamon vine remains. It waits in the forest edges, a green monster to some, a forgotten savior to those who know how to look. Look at the edges of our forests. You'll see it a blanket of glossy, heart-shaped leaves, a silent invasion swallowing everything in its path. To the modern world, it's the cinnamon vine, a nuisance, a green monster that the USDA spends millions to poison. But 170 years ago, this plant was the most expensive crop on the planet. It wasn't a weed, it was agricultural gold. Between 1855 and 1860, the West was dying. The potato blight had turned the primary food source of millions into a black, rotting sludge. In the midst of this starvation, nurserymen like William Robert Prince introduced a savior, Dioscorea polystacea, the Chinese yam. Prince didn't just sell seeds, he sold hope. For the price of hundreds of dollars in today's currency, you could buy a single tiny tuber. Farmers scrambled. They were convinced this miracle crop would end the reign of the potato forever, and the science backed them up. In ancient China, this plant was known as shan yao. For millennia, it was revered as a superior tonic. The Han Dynasty classics described it as a master of qi, a root that could strengthen the spleen and nourish the lungs. It was immune to the diseases killing the potato. It was calorie-dense. It was medicine you could eat. So, why is it a weed in the woods today, instead of a staple on your dinner plate? The answer isn't biology, it's physics. A standard potato is lazy. It grows horizontally, sitting comfortably in the top 6 inches of soil. You can scrape it out with a simple plow, but the Chinese yam is a vertical warrior. A single tuber can dive 5 feet straight down into the subsoil, anchoring itself with a grip that defies the earth. By the late 19th century, agriculture was changing. We were moving from human hands to steam-powered machines. These machines were designed for the surface. When they hit a field of Chinese yams, the equipment snapped. The brittle tubers broke deep underground, leaving the harvest locked away in the dirt. Then came the 1880s. Science discovered the Bordeaux mixture, a fungicide that saved the potato. Suddenly, we didn't need a miracle. We just needed efficiency. Faced with a choice between a potato that a machine could harvest in seconds or a superior superfood that required a man to dig a 4-foot trench with a shovel, capitalism chose the machine. Today, we call it a pest because we lost the patience to reach for it. But if you know what to look for, the green monster is still waiting. To reclaim this forgotten abundance, follow the protocol. First, identify the vine by its cinnamon-scented flowers and opposite heart-shaped leaves. Second, look for the aerial tubers or bulbils in the leaf axils. These are the seeds of the next generation. Third, and most importantly, understand the architecture. If you intend to harvest the root, you cannot use a plow. You must dig a side trench, exposing the vertical length of the tuber without snapping it. We traded nutrition for convenience. We traded ancient chi for the ease of the horizontal plow. Perhaps it's time we looked at our weeds not as enemies to be poisoned, but as a biological bank account we've simply forgotten how to withdraw from. Turn the invasion into abundance. The gold is still there, it's just 5 feet deep. Imagine a plant so powerful the government spends millions of dollars every year just to poison it. They call it a green monster, a silent invasion, a biological crisis we forgot we had. But a century ago, this same monster was hailed as the savior of the Western world. This is the cinnamon vine. Once imported to rescue us from the Great Potato Famine, it has survived only in the shadows of ornamental gardens prized for the sweet, spice-heavy scent of its flowers. But nature doesn't like to be contained. Eventually, it escaped over the garden fence to reclaim the wild, transforming from agricultural gold into a vilified weed. To understand why the USDA fears it, you have to understand how it operates. Below the surface, Dioscorea polystachya is a nutrient mine. While crops like corn and wheat struggle in the topsoil, this perennial vine drives its tubers deep, accessing mineral veins in the subsoil that haven't seen the sun in millennia. Above ground, the vine is a master of geometry. Look closely at the climb. It twines clockwise, always clockwise, from the lower left to the upper right. Its leaves are glossy, heart-shaped shields with deep purplish veins. But the real secret to its power, the air potatoes. In late summer, tiny nodules appear in the crooks of the leaves. They look like miniature potatoes, smell faintly of cinnamon, and act as biological clones. When they drop, they don't just rot, they colonize. It is zero-effort reproduction. For the government, it's a nightmare. For the permaculturist, it's a dream, a crop that plants itself. When we abandoned this vine for the common potato, we walked away from a nutritional powerhouse. If you cut into a fresh tuber, you'll find something unexpected. It's slimy. To a modern palate, that texture is a deterrent. But in the world of ancient wisdom, that slime is the medicine. That mucilage is caused by a glycoprotein called mucin, a substance that heals the gut and restores what traditional medicine calls qi. So here is the protocol for the modern forager. First, identification. Confirm the clockwise twining and the heart-shaped leaves. Second, the harvest. Collect the aerial bulblets in the fall. They can be roasted just like tiny potatoes or planted to create your own permanent food forest. Third, the tuber. Dig deep. It's a labor of love, but the energy you extract is far greater than the energy you spend. We are taught to see weeds as enemies to be conquered, but maybe the cinnamon vine isn't an invader. Maybe it's a reminder of a time when we knew how to turn abundance into health. It's time to stop poisoning our savior and start bringing it back to the table. Look closely at the forest edge and you might see it. A silent invasion. A blanket of glossy, heart-shaped leaves smothering the native canopy. To the modern gardener, this is the green monster, an invasive weed we spend millions to poison. But 150 years ago, this wasn't a plague. It was the savior of the Western world. As the potato blight turned Europe's fields to rot and sent millions to their graves, visionaries looked to the cinnamon vine. They saw more than a weed. They saw agricultural gold, a crop that could end starvation forever. Today, we've forgotten its name, but our bodies haven't forgotten its power. Think about the modern stomach. We live in a world rampant with ulcers, acid reflux, and systemic inflammation. A standard potato offers little more than starch. But the nagaimo, it offers a fortress. It is rich in mucin, a natural gastric protectant that coats the lining of your intestines with a soothing restorative barrier. But the real magic is in the enzymes. This is the only root vegetable on earth you can eat completely raw. Say why? Because it is loaded with diastase and amylase, the very same enzymes found in human saliva. When you eat a potato, your body labors to break it down. When you eat raw nagaimo, the vegetable helps digest itself. In Japan, this isn't just food. It's medicine traditionally grated over rich meats to unlock nutrients the body would otherwise struggle to absorb. Physiologically, the stats are staggering. 1 cup provides 816 milligrams of potassium, dwarfing the white potato. It's packed with resistant starch that feeds your microbiome without spiking your blood sugar. And then there is allantoin. This is a cell proliferant, a compound that encourages rapid healing and tissue repair. It's the active secret in high-end skincare and snail slime. Yet here, it is growing wild in the ditch behind your house. Consuming it internally is like sending a repair crew to your digestive tract. If you want to reclaim this forgotten abundance, don't forage it blindly. Cultivate it. Here is the protocol for the modern garden. The cinnamon vine is incredibly hardy, thriving from the frozen winters of Minnesota to the humid heat of Georgia. First, source your tubers. Look for nagaimo or Chinese yam at Asian markets or permaculture nurseries. Second, don't plant the whole root. Simply cut the top section off a store-bought tuber or use the small aerial bulbs, the seeds of the vine. Third, manage the growth. Remember the mechanical failures of the 1800s? You don't need to dig a 4-foot trench. Plant them in deep containers or loose mounds to make harvesting the gold easier. We have spent a century trying to kill a plant that was sent to save us. It's time to stop fighting the green monster and start inviting it back to the table. Turn your weeds into abundance. Subscribe as we continue to rediscover the botanical secrets hiding in plain sight. They call it the green monster, a silent invasion of glossy, heart-shaped leaves that smothers forests and chokes the life out of native trees. To the modern eye, it is a biological crisis, a weed we spend millions to poison. But what if I told you that this very plant was once the hand-picked savior of the Western world? In the 1850s, while the Irish potato famine was turning Europe into a graveyard of rotted fields and starving families, one man saw a miracle. William Robert Prince looked at the cinnamon vine and saw agricultural gold. It was a crop that didn't rot. It didn't fear the blight. It was supposed to be our insurance policy against starvation, yet we forgot. We traded ancient wisdom for modern regulation, and the savior became a villain. But the tide is turning. For those who know the secret, this vine isn't an enemy. It's an abundant resource hiding in plain sight. The challenge has always been the harvest. These tubers can dive 3 feet deep into the earth, making them nearly impossible to extract without a backbreaking trench. Modern growers have finally solved this riddle with the gutter method. It is simple, brilliant, and requires 0 digging. Here is the protocol. Take a standard rain gutter or a wide PVC pipe cut in half. Fill it with loose sandy soil and bury it in your garden at a precise 15-degree angle. Plant your seed at the very top. As the root develops, it follows the path of the pipe, growing long and straight, while remaining just inches below the surface. When autumn arrives, the struggle ends. You simply pull up the pipe and slide the clean, pristine tuber out. No shovels, no sweat. If you leave a few small tubers in the ground, the cycle resets itself, returning as an effortless harvest every spring. However, nature protects its treasures with sharp defenses. Before you bring this to your kitchen, you must understand the chemistry. The peel of the cinnamon vine is armed with Raphide's needle-like calcium oxalate crystals. Touch them with bare hands and you'll face intense itching and dermatitis. Always wear gloves, or better yet, soak the tuber in a vinegar solution to neutralize the sting. Once cooked, these crystals vanish, leaving behind a staple food enjoyed by millions across Asia. There are deeper biological factors to consider as well. This plant contains diosgenin, a precursor used to synthesize hormones. If you have hormone-sensitive conditions like endometriosis or certain cancers, consult your physician before making this a staple. The same applies to those with kidney disease, as the high potassium content requires careful monitoring. Finally, a warning for the foragers. In the wild, botany is the difference between a meal and a mistake. You must distinguish the cinnamon vine from its toxic cousin, the air potato, or Dioscorea bulbifera. Look closely at the aerial bulbs. The edible cinnamon vine produces warty textured bulbs. The potentially toxic air potato produces smooth round bulbs that look like asteroids or moon rocks. We have spent a century trying to kill the very thing that could feed us. It's time to stop fighting the landscape and start understanding it. Turn the monster back into medicine. Turn the weed back into abundance. Look closely at the edge of the woods. A blanket of glossy, heart-shaped leaves is slowly suffocating the canopy. To the modern eye, it's a biological crisis, a green monster. a silent invasion that we spend millions of taxpayer dollars trying to poison out of existence. But 170 years ago, this exact plant was the promised savior of the Western world. In the mid-19th century, Europe was starving. The potato blight had turned the fields of Ireland into a graveyard. In the midst of this darkness, visionaries like William Robert Prince saw agricultural gold. He didn't see an invader. He saw the cinnamon vine Dioscorea polystachya, a miracle crop that could end hunger forever. It was vertical abundance, a root that could grow 3 feet deep, pulling nutrients from the earth's core untouched by the diseases that rotted the potato. Yet history is a fickle judge. What was once a miracle is now a menace. Today, we treat this plant with chemical warfare, but before you see a weed, you need to see the medicine. In ancient traditions, this vine is more than food. It's a restorer of qi, a gut-healing powerhouse hidden in plain sight. If you're ready to reclaim this lost chapter of history, you must first understand the protocol. First, accuracy is life. Do not confuse this with the native wild yam Dioscorea villosa. It's bitter, it's inedible, and most importantly, never harvest from roadsides, power line cuts, or public parks. These are the front lines of the herbicide war saturated with chemicals like triclopyr. Once you've found a clean source, the culinary versatility is staggering. For a refreshing traditional experience, try the Japanese tororo. Grate the raw tuber into a sticky white paste over rice. It's crisp, clean, and acts as a powerful digestive aid. If the texture is too foreign for you, treat it like a water chestnut. Slice it thin. Pan fry until golden. It maintains a defiant crunch, never turning to mush. Or toss it into a simmering soup. The natural mucin acts as a gluten-free thickener, coating the gut and healing as you eat. We call it a threat because it doesn't fit into the neat, sterile rows of a combine harvester. We fear what we cannot control. But perhaps the problem isn't the vine. The problem is us. We've forgotten how to see abundance when it's staring us in the face. This vine offers us a choice to keep poisoning the earth or to reopen a forgotten book of survival. If you want to help us uncover more of these lost agricultural treasures, consider subscribing. Let's turn the green monster back into a garden. See you in the woods.